Hi, polyphonic.org. This is Dana Hughey again, and today I have a very special guest with me. This is Sarah Chandler, and she is the president of Local 380, the Binghamton chapter of the National Musicians Union. So, Sarah, thank you for being here with us today.
Sure, my pleasure.
So, I guess the first question that would interest our younger viewers is, how does the union work? What does it do for us? What do I get with membership in the union?
Sure. Well, it's the American Federation of Musicians, and it's a national organization, a labor organization, supporting all kinds of musicians, not just symphonic musicians. And they're what are called locals, which are all over the country. And I'm president of the Binghamton local. And as far as what the union does for you, it affords you certain rights as a union member, and specifically as a symphonic musician, for those in your audience who are thinking about auditioning for an orchestra. It will protect them one day when they become a symphonic musician. There's something called a collective bargaining agreement, which is a group contract that guarantees terms and conditions of employment for the musicians. I'm not sure if I answered the whole.
So is that collective bargaining agreement, is that bargained by the national union?
That is put in place through the local. The local is the exclusive bargaining agent of what's called the bargaining unit. In the case of where we are right now, the Binghamton Philharmonic, is the musicians are the bargaining unit, and the local negotiates with the management of the orchestra. Now, the American Federation of Musicians, which I'll refer to as the Federation, the national and international offices are also Canadian musicians as well. They're located mostly in New York City, some in Los Angeles. And we have negotiators who help musicians negotiate all over the country as well, who come in with their expertise when needed.
So that's one of the things that the national branch does for the local branch, is it lends its expertise to the negotiators.
Right, and the word branch I haven't heard used. I'm trying to figure out how to relate this to young people. It's an organization that is national in scope and has every local has its own set of bylaws, which relate to the national bylaws and cannot contradict the national bylaws. But there's a board of directors for every single local. So Binghamton has its own board of directors. We have a meeting every other month, and it covers a certain number of musicians that are protected, not only symphonic musicians, but also jazz and gigging musicians as well.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm a gigging musician, let's say that I play the saxophone, let's say that I'm a jazz saxophonist, the union, in terms of its collective bargaining, is going to be less useful for the orchestral component. So if I'm a jazz musician, what can I expect from my union membership?
Well, the collective bargaining is going to be useful for the orchestral, but not right for the gigging musician. There are casual contracts. There are contracts for gigs that musicians have out in their field, and those contracts also have terms of employment and have protections as well. Things like what wage they're going to be paid, when the breaks are going to be, that they're going to be paid at all, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if I'm an orchestral musician and I'm playing with the Binghamton Philharmonic, but I'm also playing with an orchestra in, say, Ithaca, because of the national rules, there are going to be certain similarities between the contracts, but because there are local rules as well, there are going to be certain dissimilarities in terms of how the breaks are organized and how pay is dispersed.
Right, well, there's a couple things there. There's something called jurisdiction. So the local you belong to is dictated by what jurisdictions that local encompasses. So the examples you gave, Local 380 encompasses the Binghamton area. Ithaca is actually under the purview of another local. As far as the CBAs, the collective bargaining agreements, there's, as long as we're talking about union orchestras, and by union I mean the American Federation of Musicians, there's definitely standardization across the country with the different agreements. And there's an organization called the Regional Orchestra Players Association, which is a players' conference of symphonic musicians who work together to look at contract issues and contract wording, and come together once a year for a conference as well, and that's a really valuable tool. There's a parallel organization for the more major orchestras called ICSOM, which I wanted to put in a little plug here for your viewers. There's a wonderful video And I think I'll provide you, Dana, with the link afterwards. Maybe you can post it along with your blog. But there's a wonderful video, it's about 45 minutes long, put out by ICSOM. It's a retrospective of how ICSOM was founded, and ICSOM, and then ROPA followed as well. They're such important organizations for musicians, standing up for their rights and getting fair employment more cemented. And the retrospective is filmed in Chicago. It's a great way to learn why labor unions are so important for symphonic musicians, and how the players' organizations got started. Now they're affiliated with Symphonic Services Division of the American Federation of Musicians, and they're crucial in musicians retaining and gaining ground with their collective bargaining agreements.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Could you share for our viewers one more time, how do we get in touch with these organizations? How do we find them?
Well, you could go on the web, just type in ICSOM, ICSOM, and you'll, on their homepage, there's actually a link on the right-hand side to this ICSOM 50th, I think it's the 50th anniversary. It's a retrospective video. It's about 45 minutes long. You can also find it on YouTube. And then ROPA, if you type in Google ROPA and then musician, type ROPA musician, you won't get some other organization that I have gotten without putting in the word musician, but just off, if you don't want to know the URL, just type in ROPA musician and you can find out all about ROPA. I wanted to say, Dana, that when I was in college, I went to Northwestern, all I knew about the union to begin with, the musicians union, was this newspaper that colleagues of mine that were a little further along were getting, and it's called the International Musician, and they would immediately flip to the back to see what openings were advertised. And I wasn't a union member yet, but that's when I joined the union. I paid my dues, I got my musician, and I went to the back. And over the years, my perspective has changed quite a lot. I'm settled, I have a family, I'm tenured in 3 different orchestras, and I'm in the labor leader category. And I look at the beginning, particularly the symphony news and what's going on with different orchestras. That's really important to me. And I also understand how incredibly valuable it is that that we have the union and that people have fought so hard, and you can learn about this in the ICSOM video, to get us where we are today, so that when you go up on stage, you're protected with things like perhaps temperature, what your wage is, tenure, any one of a number of conditions that I think young musicians, and I certainly was one of them, could take for granted.
Great. So for any of our viewers who may be interested in getting involved with the union, maybe lending a hand or learning more about its infrastructure, how would they get in touch and how would they get involved?
Wow, that's a really good question. I would say go on the AFM website. That's afm.org, so it's American Federation of Musicians. And there's a lot there that you can view as a layperson. There's a whole section for, I'm not sure if anyone viewing would already be a member. Do you think of AFM that's on your polyphonic?
Well, I think that there are probably some people who may be members, but I think that there's plenty that's viewable for non-members as well.
Right. I was going to say there's a lot of wonderful resources if you've got my AFM account. But regardless, you could go on there. I would say find out what your local jurisdiction is, and if there's a local, and give them a call and see if you can meet a musician who's in that organization. For symphonic musicians, a great way is probably just to start networking and contacting young people that maybe have just gotten into an orchestra, and start asking them questions about, well, how does it work with you have this collective bargaining agreement, and how does the contract work, and that sort of thing. As I mentioned before, there's a division of AFM called Symphonic Services, and they are instrumental in helping symphonic musicians with collective bargaining, with issues they're having, also with networking. So that's a good resource. I would say that in general, the staff at the Federation they work really hard. There should be more of them for what they do. So they're really busy, but I know that they're interested in young people like these viewers watching this now that want to become more aware of the importance of the union, because you're our future. You know, the young people watching this are our future.
Great. One last question. When I was in college, I got involved with several orchestras that were not unionized, and I was fortunate enough that the orchestras that I got involved with were very good, very upstanding, and they were honorable about paying their musicians and doing all the good things that good orchestras do. But not all of the orchestras out there that are not unionized are all that great. So if I'm a college student and a non-unionized orchestra approaches me and asks me to play with them, what are some warning signs that I should be looking out for that maybe this isn't the best deal that I could be getting myself involved in?
Well, I mean, ideally, of course, the best scenario is playing only for union orchestras, but I understand what you're saying, and as a young person coming out of college and you're just, eager for work, I would look for a contract, and I would look for fair terms in the contract. Look at the salary. Any red flags in the working conditions. I've just heard any number of stories with orchestras that aren't union where there might be a payment issue, and there's not a mechanism per se for remedying when someone has a problem. Now, that's not to say that, there are orchestras out there that are not union, that they have handbooks, and this may be your experience, and if people have, gotten their back pay, whatever, but you don't have the guarantees, and you don't have the expertise and the solidarity that you have with the union. So, yeah, I would say take a look at any contract you have. Pretty much, you should have a paper contract. It shouldn't be just a hire, without anything in writing. And then make sure that they stick to the agreement. And of course, I have to say, as a local officer, that the Federation is really interested in organizing and seeing that more orchestras become unionized in the future.
Great. Well, Sarah Chandler, thank you for your time once again. This was Sarah Chandler, the president of Local 380, the Binghamton chapter of the National Musicians Union.
It's the American Federation.
The American Federation's music, the American Federation of Musicians.
AFM, yeah.
Yes, you can find out more about them by going to www.afm.org and search for your local branch and get in touch with your local and see what it is that you can do to get involved with the union. In the meantime, stay tuned until next time. Thanks. Okay.
Great.
Good.